Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen. It's been a running around day for me and just ran in the door because I'm so excited. Tonight we have Rebecca Copeland here to talk about our International Book of the Month, the Kimono Tatto. Very excited about this book. Before we get to talking about, the story itself, let's talk to Rebecca first about a little background about her and the fact that this book is winning awards. Can you share a little bit of what has been happening with this book?
Well, it has, well, first of all, it got the Pulpwood Queen Award for the International Book for June, which I'm very excited about, and that's why I'm here. It also recently received the winner of the Independent Press Award in Multicultural Fiction. And then just the other day, I learned that it was named a finalist also in Multicultural Fiction for the 2022 International Book Award.
That's a mouthful. It's just
I know.
International Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys Book Club. But the reason why all of this is important is that all of the books that I read and select with the help of Mandy Haynes, I only pick the best of the best. And I tell everybody you can use this blurb. You've got our stamp. It's 5 diamonds in the Pulpwood Queen tiara, which is my highest mark. And my book that has always been the kind of what that sets the bar has been To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. And it doesn't matter to me whether it's fiction, nonfiction, poetry, whatever genre, whether it's written by a man or a woman or a team of writers. I want to pick the best books. And so far, I'm pretty pleased with the books that we pick because they often go on to option for film or television. And so very excited about it. Here comes Sarah from Washington State. Let's get her on board. Sarah Stamey. Hi, Sarah. We're happy to have you join us. I'm just going to read just before we start. We just started, Sarah, with the Copeland, but I just want to read a couple of blurbs from your book. It said, a delicate and intricate novel pieced together like a mosaic that just blew me away. The author shows a strikingly deep knowledge of Japanese literature and kimono culture. And it's Natsuo Korino, Edgar Award-winning nominated author of Out, Grotesque, and Other Novels. This is really amazing. And it goes on to say, a quote, I jostled her shoulder and noticed when I did that her skin was cold to the touch. Her entire torso was covered in tattoos of kimono motifs. This ghastly scene was the last thing Ruth Bennett expected to encounter when she agreed to translate a novel by a long-forgotten Japanese writer. Returning to her childhood home in Kyoto had promised safety and solitude, but Ruth soon finds the storyline in the novel leaking into her everyday life. Fictional characters turn out to be frighteningly real. Using her intimate knowledge of both kimono and Kyoto, Ruth must confront a vicious killer along with her own painful family secrets. Well, I know when I received this book from Brother Mockingbird and this haunting cover, it's the coolest, almost noir-esque cover. I knew it would be a great read and I'm excited about it. But first, let's hear a little bit more about you. I mean, tell us about your background. Where do you come from? How did this book come into being?
Great. It's a lot. I actually was born in Japan. And so that there was always sort of a Japanese connection, though I did not have the privilege of growing up in Japan. As soon as my mother was able to travel, we moved to North Carolina. So that's really where I grew up. And actually that's where I am now. But at somewhere along the line, I had the opportunity to go back to Japan when I was a junior in college. And believe it or not, I didn't really want to go. I mean, I was having such a good time at college with my friends, and when I would go back to Japan, I would be living with my parents. And I was like, that's not really cool. But anyway, somebody kicked sense into me somehow, and I ended up going with them to Japan and spent a year there. And it completely changed my life. And when I returned to the United States, I knew I didn't want to stop my study of Japan yet, and I wanted to keep studying. So I went, I had to wait to graduate college, and then I went to graduate school and got a master's degree in Japanese literature. And then I thought, why stop at a master's degree? So I went on and got a PhD. And then, when you have a PhD in Japanese literature, you teach. So I went into university teaching and also translating. And after a long career doing that, I realized I really want to try to write a novel. And I'd read several novels by an American named Sujata Massey, who set her novels in Tokyo, primarily Tokyo, and they were mysteries. And I just loved them. I just devoured them. And I loved the way she told a really good story, but she also carried her readers into a new place and introduced them to Japan. And I thought, oh, maybe I could do that. So I had a sabbatical coming up. And I took a year off and just sat down and tried to write. And that was in 2012. So obviously I didn't do it all at once. And after I had my draft, then I had to keep rewriting it until almost 10 years before it was published. And so here we are.
Every author apologizes for that, but it takes that long to learn the craft of putting a book together. I started my book in 2002, and then it didn't come out until 2008. Mm-hmm. And I had it finished in 2006, but the publisher, because of the way they were doing it, they wanted to wait, and I waited a year and a half. So it takes a while. Then by the time, now I haven't finished my second book, but I've been putting out anthologies. But the thing about writing is I don't think anybody truly understands just how much work it is until they start the process. So by coming, Sarah knows, she's an author, by coming to these meetings and hearing exactly what it takes, and now you're in isolation and you toil and sweat over every word, sentence, and paragraph, it's mind-boggling to me. Then when you bring out these beautiful books, I cannot, that's why I will not give a bad review. I will not tell anybody, because I know just how hard, and every story has an audience. Every story does. So, but this is really a great story. And you are, it's fascinating to me. So did your parents speak Japanese to you as a child?
Not so much. I had older sisters, and they had spent their childhood, or a percentage of their childhood, in Japan. So they carried stories with them about their childhood and told me about that. So I always had this sort of interest in Japan. For a while, my parents would speak Japanese to each other when they didn't want us to know what they were saying, because I think my sisters lost their Japanese pretty quickly, being children and being sort of exposed only to English when they came to the United States. So so when I went to Japan as a junior in college, that was my first encounter with Japanese language. And
wow. And did you pick it up fairly fast by being immersed in it? I want to learn Hindi, and it's so hard. I watch every Bollywood film and listen to it, but it's still very hard. I know words, but I don't know how to compose sentences or anything, and nobody around here teaches it. So how did you learn? I mean, you can speak it, right?
Yes. So that year I was in a international program, so a program for primarily American students, and we had instruction in Japanese language from the beginning. So I took beginning Japanese there. And by the end of that year, I felt comfortable going out and trying to talk to people. And then I left, so I sort of had to start all over again the next time I returned to Japan. But what fascinated me is my parents were missionaries, and my father had been a pastor, a teacher, and a preacher, and he had to learn Japanese in order to be effective as a missionary. So when they were there, his Japanese was very strong. My mother, because she was expected to be at home, her Japanese language study had stalled, and she never quite felt as comfortable as he did. When they came back to the United States, then they were in the United States for nearly 20 years before they went back. And he picked it right. I mean, he was preaching almost the very next day. I still am in awe of his language, and don't think I never made it to his level. Does he speak just
2 languages, or has he learned others?
Actually, he also studied Hindi.
Oh,
we spent a year.
And there's so many dialects in Hindi, like
that's true.
60 some. How about in Japanese? Are different parts of the country speak different dialects of Japanese?
There are different dialects, and Japan now has a standard Japanese, which is what is spoken on television and what is spoken in Tokyo. And so everybody speaks standard Japanese. But if you go, for example, we have a Pulpwood Queen member named Suzanne Kamata.
Yeah.
And if we were to go to where she lives, they would speak a very distinct dialect. And also they speak standard Japanese. But in the island that I spent time on that year, the year I was 20, they also have a dialect, which is different. So it's interesting because Japan is such a small country, but for so many centuries, people weren't allowed to move freely about the country. And so they developed very distinct dialects. And so it's fascinating being in Japan, because you think, oh, all Japan is the same. It's monolithic or whatever. It's all homogenous, but it's not. Every area is very distinct. And that fascinates me.
It fascinates me too, because the more I read, the more I want to know. And then the more I realize that, first of all, how many more differences there are, but then I find that there's a lot of similarities. We all have the same basic wants and needs: food, water, shelter, air, and love. To be loved, to be recognized as being of equal importance, no matter where you are, what social standing, what your religion is. And I feel like we're all slowly becoming better world citizens. That's what reading does. It opens our worlds to the possibilities of being more global. And that's what our book club is all about. We want to read. So many people think all we pick is Southern books. And we do pick a lot of Southern authors, but this year we've had more international authors. And I just commend you on everything you're doing. So you're teaching are you at a university there in
St. Louis? So I teach at Washington University in St. Louis, and we have we have 4 years of Japanese language training, and then specialty courses in Japanese. I have PhD students, so that a lot of my time is devoted to getting them through their dissertations and mentoring their dissertations. And this is one of the reasons why I really needed a sabbatical, in order to kind of get away from that and clear my head and find the space to write.
Passionate and devoted to your students. And that's the one thing about it. We all have day jobs,
Yes, I know.
And if you don't, then, you've had wealth or privilege or some, a very supportive husband. But most people I know that are writing today work a day job.
I
And
know.
it's difficult, or raising families and a
Hmm.
lot of different things. So I commend you and congratulations on all your awards. What was the biggest surprise that you had what did your students think about this book? I'm really curious about, what they thought.
Well, I think they are surprised that a professor has written a novel. There's still a distinction between creative writing and scholarly writing. And to tell you the truth, when I was writing the novel, I was a little worried that my colleagues would look down on what I was doing and think, like, oh, you're wasting your time. You should be writing scholarly work. And I kind of hid what I was doing from everybody. Nowadays at my university, and I think around the nation, there's an interest in trying to break down these divisions and the sense of categorization, and people are now trying to make scholarly work more creative. And
And it
sort of,
also makes it more engaging because let's face it, I was an art history minor. Some of this stuff and the footnotes and the research and everything, it gets a little dry. And so, I understand the thought process behind academia and especially in publishing, but basically people want to know a great story because it's all about sharing a great story. Now, what made you get into the mystery?
oh, well, Sujata Massey, the author that I made a reference to, was writing mystery. And I love mystery. I guess I thought it would be a way to pull people into the story that I want to tell them about Japan. I think, one of my passions is to try to bring people closer, people who are unfamiliar with Japan. I want to bring them closer to Japan and make it less exotic and less, foreign. And so I think with the mystery, people are encouraged to really explore and think and try to figure something out.
Well,
And so I thought a mystery would be good.
it's also, most people's views of world history is based upon the history we learn in our classes, and
Yeah,
it's usually about war. And so the war stories are usually told from the victor. So
exactly.
we're getting almost a biased and impartial, it's a view that is not necessarily true. And so, my eyes were open when I went to college and I met students from all over the world of all different colors and religions. And I found it all very fascinating. I joined the international club, and I just, it's a joy to me. And then I've had a lot of international students live with us, including a young woman from Japan who refused to teach us Japanese because she wanted to learn English.
English.
All our students that we would get did not want to teach us anything about their language. They just wanted us to talk in English constantly. And East Texas, we have our own dialect and way of talking here, and people have the habit of saying things in threes. Like, for example, my grandson says, he calls me Mama Cat. He'll go, Mama Cat, Mama Cat, Mama Cat. He doesn't say it one time. He says it's 3 times. And that's a little confusing to somebody from somewhere else. So what are some of the things in Japan that people say and do that are like not what you thought, or have a way of telling something that was unexpected? Can you think of something in particular?
Well, I think we in America, Americans think of Japan as being very formal, and Japanese as being very polite. and that is true.
It is
But
true.
when you when you are in a sort of social setting, for example, if you're all out having drinks, people that you don't know will ask you very personal questions, like, yeah, I
Really?
mean, well, are you married? No. Why not? Do you have children? No. Why not? Why aren't you married? And so um, is it, or how much money do you make, or how much was your house? So I think as an American, we're surprised by that kind of
More
boldness.
small talk and less facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always find it disconcerting when people say, what do you do for a living? What kind of car do you drive? How much money do you make? First of all, that's very, private information. But is marriage still a big part? Now, I've been reading a bit about Japanese culture and how young women are not wanting to get married as much as they used to because they now want their own careers. In fact, I read a feature on the Pan Asia countries admiring Shah Rukh Khan, and the girls admire him as much as the young men because they want to be like his character and his people they portray, and less about, and the girls would rather stay home with their parents where they can buy the designer bags and the clothes and dress the way they want than getting married to somebody who is more, we do it this way. Did you find it very patriarchal there at all?
Yeah, I think there's different levels of that, and on the one hand, absolutely yes. On the other hand, once a woman is married, she does have power within her domain. For example, if she is a housewife, and not all women in Japan are housewives, but typically the housewife is the one who controls the money. So the salary goes to her and she decides how it's spent. And, she becomes the household manager. So usually salary is deposited directly into a bank account. Japan doesn't use checking system very much. And so the salary will go right into the bank account. That's where she has control. She decides what money the husband gets and what money will go towards, food.
How do they pay if they don't have a checking account system? How do they?
It's all sort of like direct deposit. So one bank will deposit to another bank. And for a long time, they didn't use credit cards either. It was a cash society too, but the credit cards are more prevalent now and all kinds of other banking systems. But checks are
still. It always surprises me now when people say, I really prefer a check. And I go, really? I haven't written a check in a year, because I'm online, but that's fascinating.
That is true that, people aren't getting married as quickly. And it's not, marriage was important as the building block to this future of society, right? To the construction of sort of the microcosm of society. And for women, that, like you said, that often meant the sacrifice of the career. One problem is that if you have children, there aren't many, or daycare is hard to find, or it doesn't last as long as you need daycare. And so if a woman wants to have a career and a child, she needs a supporting family to help with that. And so some women prefer not to even have to deal with that.
Wow, it is amazing. And it is a small country, and the population is it growing too? No, it's come to they're very careful. And
so there's a lot of pressure on women now, young women, to have children, because there is, a terrible decline in population, and there's an aging society, so there are so many old people and not many new people being produced. So the government puts a lot of pressure on young couples to have babies by giving them financial incentives and so forth, because children are really expensive also in Japan. I mean, they're expensive anywhere, but
because of the schooling or what?
Schooling itself is not so much, the tuition is not, it's not so much the tuition, but housing is small. The schooling after school is expensive. It's just everything's rather costly.
Now, your parents were both missionaries, is that correct?
Uh-huh.
And what was that like? I mean, I've had a couple of authors that have been missionaries and told of their experiences, and it's always so fascinating to me. And I remember Barbara Kingsolver's
Poison.
book. Oh, The Poisonwood Bible was one of my favorite books, because when I was a child, I had Catholic neighbors, and I told my mother I wanted to become a nun. And she said, well, there's only one problem. We're Christian. We belong to a different church. And she goes, so in our church, you become missionaries. And I go, what do they do? And they said, well, they go to convert people to Christianity in other countries. And I thought that sounded like a good thing. But then as I've gotten older, I read so many more things about how I think people need to be educated, but I think they need to embrace their own cultures and their religions. And I think we need to be a little bit more accepting. But how was that for you? Because you kind of transitioned from that mindset to the mindset that, is more prevalent today. How did that, are your parents still living?
They have passed away. My parents were with the Foreign Baptist Mission Board, so they were Southern Baptist, and the missionaries. One of the things that missionaries do is not just, they just don't go over and proselytize or evangelize. They usually go with some kind of mission, but career aspiration. So my father was the chancellor of a university there, and so he was an educator. A lot of missionaries are in medicine, and in Japan, when Japan opened to the West in 1853, Japan had been closed for a long time to any kind of commerce with the West. When it opened, missionaries were pretty important in bringing in education, and particularly education for women. And I mean, there are pros and cons, and I think that for the most part, the missionaries that I encountered through my parents were respectful of Japanese culture and tried not to deny Japanese culture. For example, Japanese love to drink, and drinking is an important sort of
ritual.
Realize
that. I've heard about it.
Drinking is so important in any kind of social event. You have to have a glass of beer or a glass of sake or something, and cheers. And it's important to keep everybody's glasses full. As I said, my parents were Southern Baptists. They don't drink, But when my father was the chancellor of this university, he was often expected to toast with people, and they would come and pour beer in his glass. And I just remember sitting there once going like, oh my God, my father's drinking. It was, I couldn't believe it. He was not just beer, he was drinking whiskey. And I was like, I had never seen him drink, and he was good at it too. And, so I know there were some secrets back there, but they didn't come in and say, no, we have to be teetotalers and all of that. They tried to adapt to Japanese culture. And another thing is, in Japan, it's important to have rites for the ancestors, and to venerate the ancestors. And in Christianity, that can be complicated because we have one God, and we wouldn't want to also sort of put the ancestors in that category. But I think the missionaries that my parents were affiliated with appreciated the importance of this tradition, and nobody tried to stop it. They didn't say, oh, you can't go to a shrine or you can't go to a temple. And one thing about Japan that I think is important is that it recognizes all religions. It doesn't try to impose one religion over another. People will say, well, are they Buddhist or are they Shinto or are they Confucian? They're all of it. So a Japanese is very comfortable with a Christian wedding and a Buddhist funeral and, different kinds of eclectic experiences with spirituality.
Isn't that interesting? And isn't that enlightening to me? Because when I think about everything I've ever known about Japan, a lot of it is stereotypical, bowing and when we had the young woman stay with us that was from Japan, it was amazing the things we learned from her. She was very polite. Mm-hmm. She was very meticulous about what she ate. And it was so funny because my kids in the morning, we're Americans. We eat what most people eat for cereal, toast, oatmeal, bacon. She insisted upon eating, we would buy packages of coleslaw, chopped up coleslaw, that she would put vinegar and oil and salt and pepper on. And that's what we had every morning, a teeny dish for breakfast. And I was just going, that'd be like eating that spicy kind of like salady coleslaw for breakfast. But then you look at how tiny she was.
Yeah.
She's very tiny. And, my girls, we were all strapping girls, and I learned a lot from her. I mean, we had a German boy who ate us out of house and home, and Sato, who barely ate anything. I mean, the first meal we had was when we picked her up at the airport, like a Chili's, and she ordered the teeniest appetizer I've ever seen, and she goes, oh, too much. And we're going, there were 3 pieces of something on her plate. She goes, too much. And I'm
when Japanese people come over, they're just astounded by the portions, the size of our portions. They're
well, I'm kind of astounded anymore too, because they are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. But I think we're becoming more aware of that, and we're learning more about other cultures and their eating habits and everything. What was your favorite thing about? Was the entertainment? Was it the food? What was their favorite thing about the culture that you liked?
That I like so much is, I think, the everyday awareness of the passing of nature. So you would walk by a person's house and they would have, certain flowers delicately arranged, and just this attentiveness to nice things, nice displays, I think, and cleanliness. And it just fascinated me. The everyday, I like the everyday things.
Well, my favorite, we went to the Fort Worth Botanical Gardens, and my favorite gardens are the Japanese ones, because like you said, everything is so meticulous. And also I went to the one up in Portland, and I've never seen so many shades of green, and they're very aware of arranging the plantings of trees and shrubs and everything to show those off to the best. And here in America, I think, what's going to grow here? Let's plant a rower, And
it's like the portions. Everything here is big, and so in Japan, you don't have a lot of space for the big gardens. So, you have to have it very carefully arranged, right?
Right. And when she came to the United States, she had a suitcase and it was bulging, and she opened it and it was just full of little tchotchkes. And I go, where's your clothes? And she goes, what she had on. All she brought was the clothes she had on. So the first thing we had to do was go clothing shopping. Now, did you dress like your American self when you were there?
Yeah. But I'm interested in Sarah's traveled a lot as well. I think you
Yes,
pointed out
Sarah,
on your
jump in. And if you have any questions,
Yeah.
please.
I mean, I have so many things to say about your novel. And, first, those little delicate touches of the nature and the flowers and everything came across so beautifully. And I just felt so grounded and learned so much. So it's really wonderful. But when you were talking, I was having so many flashbacks to my time in southern Chile, where my former husband and I owned a farm down there. And I knew no Spanish and went to immersion school in Quito before we went down to Chile.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the way to learn, definitely, where you don't speak any English and you have to be immersed in it. But I still found it difficult. And, Spanish is a lot easier to learn than Japanese. So I admire you for that. And down there, it was that same kind of patriarchal feeling.
Oh, yeah.
The dialects. I mean, the people in Chicago don't understand the people in the South. So my pure Spanish from Quito didn't go anywhere, the South. So I imagine you probably had those similar experiences.
Oh,
yeah. But I do want to just, say what a wonderful experience it was reading your novel.
Thank you
and just
so much.
Transported there. I want to go.
I hope you go. You've traveled a lot, so you definitely need to put that on your itinerary.
Well, I made it as far as Thailand, where I got this shirt.
Oh, that's lovely.
And in size as small as they had.
Wow.
I thought I'd wear it in honor. And the whole thing about the kimonos and the designs, it was so fascinating. So
I don't know if you can see, but I have it looks like a kimono to me, but they said it's actually a really fancy house coat I have hanging in my hallway.
Oh,
all embroidered in gold. It's the most gorgeous thing ever. And I had the opportunity to get it. And one day I'm going to wear it to girlfriend weekend because it's so incredible.
Can you turn your camera?
Yeah, I can, I think. Let me turn this. I don't know if you can see this, but it's hanging in my hallway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
I don't have the lights on there, but can you see how beautiful it is?
It's very beautiful.
Beautiful.
And
it has the long sleeves.
Yeah, the long sleeves. And on the bottom of it, it has it's like around the bottom of it, it's stuffed with some kind of stuffing so that it like holds it out all the way around. And
that's not a house coat. I would hazard that it's an outer garment, perhaps for a wedding kimono, to wear on the outside. Also the performers, like Gisha, wear those long drapey kind of kimono like that as well. So it's much more than a house coat.
Well, yeah, it's pretty fantabulous. But my friend Stephanie, some gentlemen brought it in they were downsizing and they wanted to sell. And I brought a beautiful gold bracelet with filigree ceramic and a ring. And they said, we just want it to go to good homes. And I got it for pretty good deal. And she said, well, the only person I ever know that would buy anything like this is Kathy Murphy. And she called me to come over because I've collected from clothing and souvenir dolls, the costumes from around the world. And I'm fascinated with other cultures and peoples, and also fascinated by how little I do not know. Even with Chisato living with us and everything, she was in cultural shock at the, just going to Walmart is just like, blows them away because they're just like, there's so much. And they're just like amazed at the clothes. And she loved clothes, but she shopped for clothes in the children's department, 17. And I was just like, but that's so tiny. And I go, it's going to be a really tiny shirt on you if you put that on. That's pretty tiny. She goes, that's what I want, tiny, that's
That was her style.
it was that they kind of like, she kind of like that. It's almost like doll-like look,
Uh-huh.
and but she wore blue jeans, and she acclimated pretty. She spent an entire year in school here, but and she was on our volleyball team, and she made friends very easily, and she made boyfriends very easily too. So
Oh.
she's a sweet girl. But we've got a lot to cover in the book. There's, I've never read anything quite like this, and I'm always looking for books that tell me a story I haven't heard before. And I have people go, well, the trend is today to write. I go, I don't care about trends. I want to hear a story from a perspective that I've not heard from before, because how do we learn if we just keep reading the same type of stories over and over? If you are an author, if you are a reader that gets stuck with one author, you need to expand your world. So I pick a lot of different books, and this is a perfect example of and why we've made an emphasis on the International Book of the Year being as important as our book of the month, too, because we are globally, the only way we can make this world a better place is to read. So now this was this your first book?
Oh yeah. First novel. Yeah.
How long it took to read it. And I do believe what we talked before, you do have another one you're working on?
I'm working on it. Yeah. I hope to start working on it more.
Well,
now that it's summer.
Do you think it'll take quite as long as the first one?
I don't think so. I mean, I made a lot of the book writing itself didn't take quite as long as trying to find a publisher, right? And then needing to revise. And I think, my inexperience with writing this book was in a way almost a gift, because I didn't realize the importance of clinging to genre. And that was what I think, the fact that it's not really a mystery, it doesn't conform to mystery genre, it doesn't conform to suspense genre, it's hybrid. And I think that made it difficult for me to find an agent, because they just didn't know what to do with it. And yet I think that's the strength of the book.
That's what I was going to say. I don't want to read a book where you follow a genre.
Yeah.
I want people to challenge themselves as writers and write the story that they want to tell, not what publishers want you to write. Because I encourage every author, I hope you're listening to this, the books I'm picking, I want you to write the story that you want to tell. Because anytime, and a good example is, I remember when Pat Conroy wrote Beach Music, I devoured it. I got it in manuscript form. And then there came a scene where the boys are in this boat and they have caught a stingray on the line. And the way they describe what happened in the scene reminded me more of what would happen if you catch a shark. Now, I don't know. I've never caught a stingray. I caught a bird once at Salton Sea accidentally, but I didn't really know. But I asked him about it, and he said, "Oh, that's so funny. It was a shark." And they said, "That's been done to death. You need to change it to something else." And he changed it. And I said, "This is why I love to talk to authors." And I said, it's the funniest thing. But I like books, and if anybody's writing an international book or a book that doesn't fit a genre, I hope that you'll go on our website and please send it to Andy Haynes and I, because that's why I love Brother Mockingbird. I love, all the publishers, the She Writes Press, all these people that are doing these books that are not labeled, because this is one cat that doesn't like to be put in a box. Cats always want to get. No, the world is expanding daily. So I want to see not more books written about the mysterious story in Japan, but more books that are original.
Mhm.
Because when you think about a book that really breaks the mold, I always think about Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden, because that book still haunts me, that a man wrote that story, and it was so much a woman's story, and I never read anything like it before. So, I hope everybody's listening, and thank you. And I'm looking forward to that next book, Rebecca, because we're very proud of the books that we pick, and we're proud that you share the stamp and share all your awards, and we hope they continue. So
Thank you.
as you move forward, do you think this will be what you do for will it be the writing or the teaching, or will it be both?
No, I'm 1 foot in retirement. I mean, I'm heading to retirement, and I'm eager to retire because I want to transition into this new direction. It's interesting where I work, a lot of people don't want to retire. It's a good job. I mean, university teaching, you're around energy and excitement
Young people and
it's just fun. It's a good job, but a lot of people don't want to retire. And I think so much of our identity is sewn up in our jobs, but for me, it's so exciting that I have this new direction that I can't wait to retire so that I can begin
And actually,
to write.
I think for women, we need to get rid of that word retire, because quite frankly, we're just changing hats. We are not retiring.
Nobody really retires.
Somebody said to me, well, now that
always
you're
working.
no longer doing hair and that you've retired, I go, stop.
Yeah.
I have never worked harder during COVID than in my entire life, working on my art, working on keeping the book club together. There is no retirement in sight for me, because to me, the power of the work is what gives me the passion and the purpose to giving and sharing for others. It's being in service to others. You don't retire from that.
No.
So let's ban the word retirement and say we're now living life to its fullest.
Someone told me that it was rewirement, not retirement.
Thank you. That is a good word, Sarah. We need to do a Pulpwood Queen quote book on new words. And I heard one from Kimberly Brock the other night. Now I can't think of what it was, but she said, "Oh no, that's not what it is. It's this." And she had a new word, and I go, "These are brilliant. These are brilliant." And so that's why I don't want to kick books out of the dictionary, but retirement is a fuddy-duddy old, 1950s mentality. Nobody retires anymore. I mean,
Rebecca, I just want to add, Rebecca, that I taught at the university here, and I was teaching creative writing, but I know that feeling because so much of my energy went to my students that I wasn't writing my own. And so I congratulate you on taking that next step into, just embracing your writing.
And it's interesting that more and more of my students are interested in doing more creative writing. I mean, that's not what I'm training them to do, but they're interested in it. And I want my students to see that we can transition, we can change, we can find new pathways. We don't have to get locked into just one identity. And so I'm hoping I can serve as a bit of a role model in that regard as well.
Rebecca, you're leading by example.
I hope so.
They're seeing you win these awards and everything, and that's very empowering. You're giving them something to look forward to, and that's what we all want. We want hope for a better world, for following our passions, and for anybody out there, everybody wants to write a book these days. It used to be one out of 4 people. Everybody. Well, you know what? Everybody should write a book, because when you write a book, you're immortal.
And there's so many ways of finding access to publication, right? We don't have to be bound by traditional publishers. And so kudos to independent presses like Brother Mockingbird that, Melissa Carrigy took a chance on the Kimono Tattoo. I don't know if, when I submitted it to her, it was 117,000 words. And this is another thing. I didn't understand the length expectation. I thought, well, Steve King writes a long book. I guess I should write a long book. So I just kept writing. And it was actually 120,000 words. And I had managed to cut it down. Melissa politely wrote back to me and said, if you can get it down to 100,000 words, I could consider it. So okay, so I had taken it down as far as I could take it. I got an editor who helped cut it down to then 100. And when I saw how much better it was, when it was thinner and leaner, I cut some more. And then I really appreciated the importance of length. and so, I mean, but Melissa took a chance, she had no idea that it would come through.
You save all that because someday when they do the papers on you, they'll say, oh, and here's the hidden chapter.
Yeah.
They do this now on films and books. In fact, one of my authors, Tim Dorsey, he took the original manuscript and, it's typed up and and the edits on it, and he signed them and he would send them out as thank you notes. And I thought that is the coolest thing, because you see how they edited his work, and yet it's a copy of the original manuscript. I'm sure he had another copy of it, but it was, I thought, because what do you do with that edited where they've got all the little marks and everything? Did you keep yours?
Well, a lot of it is electronic. So,
I guess
it's
that's
not
how old my book was, because I
Yeah.
got the hard copy and I kept every page of it because I thought I sweat blood, sweat tears during that process. But really excited for you. And, so, we're not going to ask you when you're going to be retiring, but not retiring, rewiring.
Rewiring.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other questions from you, Sarah, tonight?
Actually, yeah. So just a comment is that sometimes those deleted scenes, the way they do in movies now, you can offer them as rewards to your readers, to your newsletter. And
what a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah. But my question is, well, first of all, are there any deleted scenes that talk more about Matthew? Because at the end, it was so beautiful. She turns around and looks into his eyes. And I just wanted to know more, if there's any deleted scenes that you could tempt us with.
There's a blog coming maybe this week where she'll tell you the answer to that story. I can see it coming. So.
Yeah, and then just your tactic, I think it was really smart to have Ruth, your protagonist, be the outsider, even though she wants to be the insider, because I've done that in my novels too. I wouldn't dare write from the inside of being in the Caribbean or in South America. So how did you come to that decision, or was it just instinctive?
That is such a good question. And I struggled with the idea of writing from the perspective of somebody from Japan. And there are characters, obviously, from Japan who have their own voice in the novel. With Sujata Masi, the author I keep referring to, she's South Asian. And she wrote from the perspective of an Asian American. So her main character was an Asian American Japanese woman. So there was a connection for her, but I didn't feel comfortable trying on that voice. And I liked the idea of Ruth being an outsider who was more inside than her sort of, doppelganger, her friend Maho, who was very much, she was Japanese, but she was so not Japanese.
Yeah, I love the contrast.
And I know people like that, and so I liked the contrast there as well. But I felt that what I wanted to do was talk about Japan, and Ruth would be able to explain things from her point of learning about them. And so it just felt more natural for the protagonist to be Ruth. Now, I also worry about, are all the bad guys going to be Japanese? So does that look bad too? If I write another, and I'm working on another sort of sequel, will all the bad guys be Japanese again? And I need to work on that.
You'll figure it.
I'll look forward to that.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Well, for anybody who's listening to this, as we download it and put it up on our YouTube channel, you can go to where to ask you questions. Rebecca, what would be the best way to talk to you?
I have a web page that's rebecca-copeland.com. And that I post a blog there, and I can be contacted through there. I also have a Facebook, Rebecca Copeland Author on Facebook, and that's fine as well. And I'm a professor at Washington University in St. Louis, so I'm easily found there as well.
Beautiful place to be, very historic. Also, you're going to be blogging all the rest of this week on the Pulpwood Queen Presents Her Picks blog, which is where we put all our featured authors for the week. She's blogging every day. And of course, she's our, Rebecca was our Tuesday night book club meeting. And we have a different author every week because we're trying to share the wealth of all of our books. So we're excited. We're excited about our annual Girlfriend Weekend, which will be coming up. And I was just showing her right before I came on here, I got my official book bag from our swag shop, and it's huge. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be a lot of swag.
I'm so excited about the 23rd annual Girlfriend Weekend Over the Moon event, and our 2022 authors will be recognized, and then we'll be announcing our book of the month, our international book of the month, our bonus book of the month, and we have other awards that we'll be giving out. And so that's our Sunday night of our weekend. And we have a lot planned at Amelia Island, Florida, which is off the coast, just below Jacksonville, Florida. And it is a vacation spot that houses many celebrities and authors like David Valducci and John Grisham have homes. I think you're going to be utterly charmed by the locale. So get your tickets. We've only got limited seating. So many were rollovers. Please come, and please go to our calendar of events to read all the things we do every single week to bring these authors like Rebecca Copeland to all of you. This is my life's mission, and it is a privilege and a pleasure, Rebecca, to showcase you this week, because I so believe in your book, and it's got a beautiful, beautiful cover. Brother Mockingbird, brava, brava. So
thank you so much.
And we have our own bookshop where we have the books on our website, or any of your favorite online booksellers, but we try to help the independents, so that proceeds from buying them from our website goes to independent bookstores across the country. So that's my spiel for tonight. Thank you for joining me at my little cabin in the woods. Have a wonderful night, and I can't wait to post your next blog tomorrow morning.
It's going to be on dance.
Oh boy, my favorite thing. In fact, when I leave here tonight, my cousin and her friend, I'm introducing them to a Bollywood film.
Oh,
yeah. So they're going to, they've never experienced it. So we're going to have a little, and then we're also going to be working on some art. So we've got a big evening planned. Sarah, thank you for joining us. I pay attention.
Thank you, Sarah. It's good to meet
so
you, Sarah.
Much from Washington State, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of my chapter members from Bellingham, Washington area. We're going to create a group inside page on the official Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys book club, so to help authors and readers connect with rental cars and things during the things, and sharing rooms, because it's so much nicer. And besides, you meet people that you will bond with for life. So stay tuned to that. Mandy Haynes and I are working on that. And y'all thank Mandy Haynes. She is a treasure. She is really got the whole island on board to promote this event. So thank you very much. And good luck in class. Are you going tomorrow?
We're on vacation.
Oh, that's right, it's
summer
June.
Vacation. Yeah.
Geez, I tell you, during the COVID time of COVID, I have the time. If it wasn't for these Zoom meetings, I wouldn't even know what day it is. So thank you for reminding me. It's summer.
It's summer.
Anyway, have a great summer break. And you guys, we'll see you next time. It's all.
See you next time. Bye, Sarah. Bye, Kathy.
Love you both. Thank
Love
you
you
so
both.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye.